Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ever wish you could just download knowledge, like right into your brain? Well, today we're doing like the next best thing. Um, a deep dive into Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck. And before you think, oh, are they just like endorsing apathy? No, no, let me assure you, this is about being strategic, about choosing what matters most.
That's right. Manson's book, it's not about becoming indifferent. It's about rejecting this pressure to care about everything and everyone equally.
We're going to unpack some pretty counterintuitive ideas, so buckle up. Get ready for a thought-provoking ride.
One of the most striking examples that Manson uses is the story of Charles Bukowski. Bukowski was a writer who achieved, significant success, despite, or perhaps because of, his embrace of what some might call like a loser persona.
His tombstone even reads "Don't try," which is a pretty stark contrast to the fact that he's a celebrated literary figure.
That apparent contradiction, it gets right to the heart of Manson's argument, which is the power of radical honesty, even when it comes to our flaws. Bukowski, he didn't try to fit a mold. He was unapologetically himself. And that resonated with people.
It makes you wonder if we're all just trying too hard to project a perfect image instead of embracing our authentic selves.
Absolutely. And that constant striving for perfection often leads to what Manson calls the feedback loop from hell. You know that feeling when you feel bad about feeling bad.
Oh, I know it all too well. It's like it's a downward spiral of negativity.
Exactly. And it's often fueled by these by external pressures, consumerism, social media, this constant comparison game. We get bombarded with messages about what we should care about, what we should be striving for.
So next time you find yourself spiraling in that loop, here's a tip. Ask yourself, what external pressure am I giving too much weight to right now? Is it something that genuinely matters to you? Or is it just noise from the outside world?
That's a great point. It's about taking a step back and consciously choosing where we direct our energy and our attention. Which brings us to Manson's concept of selective giving.
It's like we all have a limited number of fooks to give, and we have to choose where to spend them wisely.
Precisely. It's a mark of maturity to realize that we can't care deeply about everything. It's about focusing on what truly aligns with our values.
This reminds me of a quote from the show The Wire. That's what you get for giving a feck when it wasn't your turn to give a feck.
I love that. It speaks to the importance of choosing our battles and recognizing that sometimes the best course of action is to simply let go.
Manson has a rather unconventional way of driving this point home. He introduces this character called Disappointment Panda.
Yes. Disappointment Panda. He's like a superhero who delivers hard truths, the kind we often try to avoid.
Imagine a panda bursting into your living room and shouting, happiness isn't about avoiding pain, it's about solving problems.
He might sound harsh, but Disappointment Panda is actually grounding us. In reality, Manson uses this simple example of stubbing your toe. It hurts, right? But that pain, it's a signal. It's teaching us to pay attention to our surroundings and avoid doing it again.
So instead of seeing pain as something purely negative, we should view it as feedback. It's telling us something. Something needs attention, whether it's a physical injury or an emotional struggle.
That's a powerful shift in perspective, and it leads to a broader point. Happiness, it isn't a destination. It's a process. It's about engaging with challenges, finding solutions, and continuously growing.
So true happiness lies in finding problems that we actually enjoy solving. Think about it. Are there challenges in your life that while not necessarily fun, they give you a sense of satisfaction when you overcome them?
That's a great question for our listeners to ponder. And it leads us to another crucial aspect of Manson's philosophy, the value of negative emotions.
We often try to avoid or suppress negative emotions like sadness, anxiety, or anger. But what if they're actually trying to tell us something?
Exactly. Negative emotions, they're signals. They're prompting us to address an underlying issue. For example, anxiety might be telling us that we need to reevaluate a stressful situation or set better boundaries. Sadness might be prompting us to grieve a loss or seek support.
Instead of trying to force those feelings away, maybe we should listen to what they're trying to tell us. Of course, it's important to differentiate between a healthy response and an unhealthy obsession with negative emotions.
Absolutely. It's about finding a balance, acknowledging and addressing the root causes of negative emotions without letting them consume it.
And we've talked a lot about choosing our battles and being selective about where we direct our energy. But how do we actually choose what to care about? This is where our values come in. Right?
Precisely. Our values, they act as a compass, guiding our decisions and shaping our experiences. To illustrate this, Manson tells the fascinating story of Hiru Onoda.
Onoda was a Japanese soldier who remained hidden in the jungle for 29 years. After World War II ended, he refused to believe that the war was over.
His unwavering loyalty to Japan, while admirable in some ways, ultimately became his downfall. He clung so tightly to his values that he missed out on decades of life. It highlights the importance of regularly examining and questioning our own beliefs.
So it's not just about choosing the right values, but also about ensuring that our values continue to serve us as we grow and evolve.
Exactly. Our values shouldn't be static. They should adapt and change as we gain new experiences and knowledge.
This brings us to Manson's analogy of the self-awareness onion. It's about peeling back those layers, not just examining our emotions, but also questioning the values that are driving those emotions.
It's a process of going deeper, asking ourselves not just what we feel, but why we feel it, and ultimately why those feelings matter to us.
It's about understanding the metrics we use to measure success and failure in our lives. And that leads to the big question, are we using the right metrics?
That's a question each of us has to grapple with. Manson illustrates this through contrasting examples of two musicians, Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, and Pete Best, the original drummer for the Beatles.
Okay, this should be interesting. What did they do?
Mustaine, despite achieving considerable success, always felt like a failure. Why? Because he constantly compared himself to Metallica's achievements. His metric for success was based entirely on external validation and competition.
So even though he'd accomplished so much, he wasn't measuring himself against his own values and goals.
But against someone else's yardstick.
Exactly. Now contrast that with Pete Best. He missed out on Beatlemania, but he found happiness in family life and continued pursuing music on his own terms. He prioritized personal fulfillment over fame and fortune. It's a powerful reminder that success is subjective. What matters is whether you feel successful based on your values and goals. It's so easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others and measuring our worth based on external standards.
Absolutely. And that leads us to another crucial point. Manson's critique of what he calls common crappy values. These are values that often lead to unhappiness and unfulfillment.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are these crappy values?
He identifies three main culprits: pleasure, material success, and always being right.
I can eye how those could be problematic if they become our primary focus.
Let's start with pleasure. We're constantly bombarded with these messages equating happiness with pleasure. But research shows that while experiencing pleasure is great, it's fleeting. A life solely focused on chasing pleasure often lacks depth and meaning.
And what about material success, where we're all conditioned to think that we need more stuff to be happy, bigger houses, fancier cars, the latest gadgets?
Right. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying material comforts, the correlation between wealth and happiness is surprisingly weak. Once basic needs are met, it's like chasing a moving target. You get that new thing, and then you immediately want something else.
And then there's the obsession with always being right. That can be a real roadblock to growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It fosters defensiveness and closes us off to new information. Learning and personal development, they require a willingness to be wrong.
Yeah.
To embrace uncertainty and to adapt our beliefs based on new evidence.
Manson uses some pretty personal anecdotes to illustrate the importance of taking responsibility for our lives, even when things aren't entirely our fault. He talks about getting expelled from school and dealing with a
cheating girlfriend.
Those are difficult situations. But instead of playing the victim, Manson focuses on what he could learn from those experiences and how he could make better choices in the future. It's about shifting from a blame mentality to an ownership mentality. Even when things go wrong, we can still choose how we respond and what we learn from those challenges.
Taking responsibility, it empowers us to focus on what we can control, our actions, our responses, our choices, rather than dwelling on dwelling on what we can't.
This reminds me of the story of William James, the father of American psychology. He faced a lot of early struggles and setbacks.
Yes. William James is a fantastic example of how changing our mindset can change our reality.
He was plagued with health issues and a sense of inadequacy, but he made a conscious choice to believe he had control over his experience.
And that choice changed everything. Instead of going on his limitations, he focused on what he could do. And that shift in perspective allowed him to achieve incredible things.
It's a powerful reminder that we always have a choice in how we respond to challenges, even when things feel completely outside our control. We can choose our attitude, our actions, and the meaning we derive from those experiences.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a fascinating and somewhat controversial societal trend that Manson critiques: victimhood chic.
Victimhood chic. Okay, I'm not familiar with that term. What does it mean?
It's the idea that there's a certain social currency in claiming victimhood, particularly online. While acknowledging genuine suffering is important, there's a danger in perpetuating a culture of outrage and blame.
So it's like everyone is competing for the most depressed title.
And social media tends to amplify this dynamic.
Exactly. And it can be incredibly damaging, both individually and collectively. It keeps people stuck in a cycle of negativity, prevents them from taking responsibility
For those lies.
and hinders progress towards meaningful change. So how do we navigate this landscape without getting caught in that trap of perpetual victimhood? It's a tough question, especially in our hyper-connected world, where everyone has a platform to voice their grievances.
It requires critical thinking and being mindful of the information we consume. We need to ask ourselves, are we focusing on genuine issues where we can make a difference? Or are we getting caught up in outrage for its own sake?
It's about recognizing that our energy and attention, they're precious resources. We should direct them towards issues that truly matter to us, where we can make a positive impact.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another powerful tool in Manson's arsenal.
Yeah.
The importance of saying no. He recounts his experiences traveling the world, particularly his time in Russia, where he encountered a refreshingly blunt culture that embraced honesty over politeness.
So he was in a place where people weren't afraid to tell you what they really thought, even if it wasn't what you wanted to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was a liberating experience for him, realizing that that rejection didn't have to be feared or avoided. It was a natural part of life, and actually essential for setting healthy boundaries and building authentic relationships.
It's not about being rude or dismissive, but rather about being honest with ourselves and others, expressing our true feelings and needs without fear of reprisal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, is the foundation for trust and intimacy.
Yeah.
It allows us to build relationships based on genuine connection rather than superficial pleasantries.
This makes me think about how we often romanticize love in our culture. Manson challenges that notion, using the example of Romeo and Juliet.
He suggests that Shakespeare actually intended it as a cautionary tale, highlighting the dangers of impulsive, all-consuming passion.
So he's saying that that kind of whirlwind romance isn't necessarily a model for healthy relationships.
Precisely. He distinguishes between healthy love, which is based on mutual respect, responsibility, and strong boundaries, and unhealthy love, which is often fueled by codependency and the fear of being alone.
So it's not about finding someone who completes you or fixes your problems. It's about finding someone who supports your growth and challenges you to become the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And that requires honesty, vulnerability, and as we discussed earlier, a willingness to both reject
and be rejected. Which brings us back to the importance of saying no, setting boundaries, and being honest with ourselves and our partners.
Manson shares some personal anecdotes about how honesty, even when it's difficult, can actually strengthen a relationship. It's about being willing to have those tough conversations, to share your true thoughts and feelings, even when you're afraid of how your partner might react.
But wouldn't that make things more difficult, not less?
It might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but ultimately, that kind of honesty, it builds trust and intimacy. It's about creating a safe space where both partners feel comfortable being vulnerable and authentic.
So it's not about hiding our flaws or pretending to be someone we're not. It's about accepting ourselves, warts and all, and trusting that our partner will do the same.
And that acceptance, that willingness to see each other fully is the foundation for a truly deep and meaningful connection.
It sounds like commitment plays a big role
Yeah,
in creating that kind of relationship.
absolutely. And this is where Manson challenges another common misconception that that commitment is restrictive or limiting.
Especially in today's world, where
Yeah.
we're constantly told, keep our options open
Yeah.
and explore all possibilities.
Right, but Manson argues that true freedom comes from commitment. He shares his own experiences of struggling with commitment issues, particularly in his younger years when he was traveling the world and constantly seeking new experiences.
It's like that fear of missing out, always wondering if there's something better around the corner.
Exactly. But eventually Manson realized that he was spreading himself too thin, constantly chasing novelty without ever truly investing in anything.
So he decided to settle down and focus on building something meaningful.
Not quite. Not quite settled down in the traditional sense. But he did realize that that depth often trumps breadth. He found more fulfillment in focusing his energy on a few key areas: his writing, his relationships, his personal growth, rather than trying to do everything and be everything.
It's about recognizing that we can't have it all. We have to make choices, prioritize what truly matters, and let go of the rest.
And that letting go can be incredibly liberating. It frees up our energy. Attention to focus on what we've chosen to commit to.
That resonates with me. It's like decluttering your life, both physically and mentally. So you have more space for the things that truly matter.
It's a great analogy, and it ties in with Manson's overall message.
Yeah.
About
gas.
Not giving a fuck about the things that don't serve us. Commitment, it isn't about sacrificing our freedom. It's about choosing what we want to be free for.
So it's not about limiting our options, but rather about making conscious choices and then fully embracing those choices.
It's about recognizing
Right.
that we have a limited amount of time and energy, and we have to spend those resources wisely.
It makes me think about how we often define success. We tend to focus on these external markers, wealth, status, achievements. But what if true success is about something deeper?
That's a great question, and it's one that Manson addresses throughout the book. He challenges us to reevaluate our metrics for success, to ask ourselves what truly matters to us, and to live in alignment with those values.
So it's not about achieving some some arbitrary standard set by society, but rather about defining success on our own terms.
Precisely. It's about creating a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling to us, regardless of what anyone else thinks.
Which brings us back to that idea of not giving a feck what other people think.
Exactly. It's about being true to ourselves, even when it means going against the grain or challenging societal norms.
You know, it's almost like we've come full circle. We started talking about choosing what to give a feck about, and now we're talking about not giving a feck about what other people think.
It's all connected, isn't it? It's about taking ownership of our lives, defining our own values, and making choices that align with those values, regardless of external pressures
or expectations.
And ultimately, it's about recognizing that we have the power to create meaning and fulfillment, even in the face of life's challenges and our own mortality. It's a powerful message, isn't it? That we have the power to create meaning, even in the face of our own mortality.
It is incredibly hopeful. It's not about like denying death or trying to escape it, but it's about like embracing life and making the most of the time that we have.
And it all comes back to that idea of not giving a feck about the things that don't truly matter. So we can focus our energy on what does.
So instead of getting caught up in the pursuit of external validation or material possessions, we can choose to invest in relationships, pursue our passions, and contribute to something larger than ourselves.
Exactly. And speaking of investing in relationships, Manson has some interesting thoughts on romantic love. He He uses Romeo and Juliet as an example.
Wait, Romeo and Juliet, isn't that like the ultimate love story?
Well, that's the common interpretation. But Manson suggests that Shakespeare might have intended it as a cautionary tale. He argues that that Romeo and Juliet's love is more about impulsive passion and emotional escapism than about a healthy, sustainable love.
So he's saying that that kind of whirlwind romance isn't necessarily a model for healthy relationships.
Precisely. He distinguishes between healthy love, which is based on mutual respect, responsibility, and strong boundaries, and unhealthy love, which is often fueled by codependency and the fear of being alone.
So it's not about finding someone who completes you or fixes your problems. It's about finding someone who supports your growth and challenges you to become the best version of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that requires honesty, vulnerability, and as we discussed earlier, a willingness to both reject and be rejected.
Which brings us back to the importance of saying no, setting boundaries, and being honest with ourselves and our partners.
Manson shares some personal anecdotes about how honesty, even when it's difficult, can actually strengthen a relationship. It's about being willing to have those tough conversations, to share your true thoughts and feelings, even when you're afraid of how your partner might react.
But wouldn't that make things more difficult, not less?
It might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but ultimately that kind of honesty, it builds trust and intimacy. It's about creating a safe space where both partners feel comfortable being vulnerable and authentic.
So it's not about hiding our flaws or pretending to be someone we're not. It's about accepting ourselves, warts and all, and trusting that our partner will do the same.
And that acceptance, that willingness to see each other fully, is the foundation for a truly deep and meaningful connection.
It sounds like commitment plays a big role in creating that kind of relationship.
Absolutely, and this is where Manson challenges another common misconception.
Yeah,
that commitment is restrictive or limiting,
especially in today's world where we're constantly told to keep our options open and explore all possibilities.
Right, but Manson argues that true freedom comes from commitment. He shares his own experiences of struggling with commitment issues, particularly in his younger years when he was traveling the world and constantly seeking new experiences.
It's like that fear of missing out, always wondering if there's something better around the corner.
Exactly. But eventually Manson realized that he was spreading himself too thin, constantly chasing novelty without ever truly investing in anything.
So he decided to settle down and focus on building something meaningful.
Not quite. Not quite settle down in the traditional sense. But he did realize that depth often trumps breadth. He found more fulfillment in focusing his energy on a few key areas: his writing, his relationships, his personal growth, rather than trying to do everything and be everything.
It's about recognizing that we can't have it all. We have to make choices, prioritize what truly matters, and let go of the rest.
And that letting go can be incredibly liberating. It frees up our energy and our attention to focus on what we've chosen to commit to.
That resonates with me. It's like decluttering your life, both physically and mentally. So you have more space for the things that truly matter.
It's a great analogy, and it ties in with Manson's overall message. Right. About not giving a fuck about the things that don't serve us. Commitment. It isn't about sacrificing our freedom.
Yeah.
It's about choosing what we want to be free for.
So it's not about limiting our options, but rather about making conscious choices and then fully embracing those choices.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have a limited amount of time and energy, and we have to spend those resources wisely.
It makes me think about about how we often define success. You
Okay.
know, we tend to focus on these external markers like wealth,
Okay,
status, achievements. But what if true success is about something deeper?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one it's one that Manson addresses
Seriously.
throughout the book. He challenges us to reevaluate our metrics for success, to ask ourselves
Yeah.
what truly matters to us, and to
And to live.
in alignment with
Yeah.
those
I
values.
was, so it's not about achieving some arbitrary standard set by society, but rather about defining success
Yeah.
on our own terms.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about creating a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling
Yeah.
to us, regardless of
Yeah.
what anyone else thinks.
Which brings us back to that idea of not giving a fuck about what other people think.
Exactly. It's about being true to ourselves, even when it means going against the grain or challenging societal norms.
Yeah, it is empowering, isn't it, to realize that we have like more control over our experience than we often give ourselves credit for.
It is, and it's a message that's particularly relevant in today's world, right? Where we're constantly bombarded with information and external pressures. It's easy to feel overwhelmed
Yeah.
and lose sight of what truly matters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where Manson's message about not giving a feck comes in. You know, it's not about apathy. It's about making conscious choices about where we direct our energy and attention.
Right. It's about recognizing that we can't care deeply about everything, and that's okay. In fact, it's healthy. It allows us to focus on what truly aligns with our values and purpose.
So if you could sum up Manson's message in just one sentence, what would it be?
Choose your battles wisely, and don't be afraid to not give a feck about the things that don't truly matter.
I love that. It's simple, but it's profound. It's about taking ownership of our lives,
Yeah.
defining our own values, and making choices that reflect those values.
And it's about recognizing that true happiness
Yeah.
and fulfillment come from living a life that's authentic to ourselves.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the importance of choosing our values, the power of taking responsibility,
Yeah.
the value of negative emotions, the freedom that comes from commitment, and the importance of facing our own mortality.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating conversation, and I hope our listeners have gained some valuable insights
Yeah.
from Manson's work.
I know I have. One of the things that really struck me is this idea that happiness isn't a destination, it's a process. It's about engaging with challenges, finding solutions, and continuously growing.
And it's about recognizing that negative emotions aren't something to be feared or avoided. They're signals prompting us to address these underlying issues and make positive changes in our lives.
Yeah. Another key takeaway for me is the importance of saying no. It's about setting boundaries, being honest with ourselves and others, and not being afraid to reject things that don't align with our values.
And it's about recognizing that commitment. Rather than being restrictive, it can actually be incredibly liberating. It allows us to focus on what truly
it truly matters,
and to create a life that is meaningful and fulfilling.
I also appreciate Manson's reminder that success is subjective. It's not about achieving some arbitrary standard set by society, but rather about defining success on our own terms and living a life that feels authentic to ourselves.
And ultimately, it's about recognizing that we have the power to create meaning and purpose in our lives, even in the face of challenges and our own mortality.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Yeah.
If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do differently today?
That's a powerful question. It cuts through all the noise and distractions and forces us to confront what truly matters.
It's a reminder that life is precious, and we should make the most of every moment. So go out there, choose your battles wisely, and don't be afraid to not give a feck about the things that don't truly matter.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.